This is the fourth installment of a series that I've been doing called Testimony Tuesdays. I've been going live every Tuesday for the past 4 Tuesdays to basically share testimonies of just different ways that God has shown up in my life. And it's been cool. Like the first one was about how God like totally took my walk with him, my relationship with him, to a whole new level by teaching me like one key lesson back in the summer 2014. Hey Rick. The second one was about how God used like prophecy to really change my life, show me my calling, meet me in really hard seasons. The third one was about how God hooked up my housing during a really stressful housing situation. And this one is going to get a little bit closer to home. This one is about how God showed up through my mom's battle with cancer earlier this year, which it's closer to home because a lot of people probably didn't even know that my mom had a cancer diagnosis. So I really appreciate my friends that are here showing support, because just in case I get emotional and just because it's a little bit of a more vulnerable topic. So I really appreciate y'all that are here just to be with me in this moment. But it shouldn't be sad, because truly God did come through. So I'm believing that this is gonna bless your nights and not be like a downer on your evenings, because God was faithful like he always is. So yeah, this is a part of the Breathe Myself in God channel. I have a YouTube channel where I share my faith, like my mind, my heart, my journey with my God, as I like to say. So if you haven't already checked that out, I definitely would love to. I would love for y'all to subscribe and check out my videos. But yeah, I'm gonna hop into the story for this week. Okay, so what was the date? When was it? I don't know. Sometime in February. Hold on, I gotta pray, y'all. Lord, just real quick, Jesus, I just invite you into this time and I ask you to help me to tell this story, to hold it all together, and that you will be glorified and that people would be encouraged in the process. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. So yeah, maybe February of this year, sometime February or March. Yeah, Auntie Val, she's my hero too. My mom called me. I was on my way to go study. I did this thing at my school called Wednesday Workflow, where we would go and study on campus, just do our work and things like that. And I was on my way to a Wednesday Workflow to meet up with a friend to study. And I had a friend, and my mom called me and kind of told me that she had a doctor's visit where basically they told her that she had cancer. And honestly, it was kind of out of nowhere, because I don't know. I don't even remember that we talk all the time, but I don't even remember her telling me that she was going for a mammogram or that there was any sort of a lump or anything like that. So it kind of just like came out of nowhere. And I remember when she told me, like, she was kind of calm. My mom, anybody that knows my mom, like, she has faith. Like, she's a giant in faith. Like, she's so calm and trusting in God. She was calm. And so, we had a calm conversation about it, but basically, she told me, and she just said that they were going to, run tests, that they thought it was early stage, but, she was going to keep me posted, and, just we would pray and everything like that. So, I called my best friend. I told her, we talked about it for a little bit, and then I went in and I basically, had to study. I had assignments that were due, and that's probably the craziest thing that I think a lot of us experience is like, when things happen in your life that are really crazy, if it's not like an actual death where you need to go like to a funeral or be with family or something, a lot of times it's like life just has to keep going. So I literally, like, my mom had just told me that she had a cancer diagnosis, and I literally just had to go in the room and like do my homework. And so I'm like just doing my work and like kind of just going through that. And I think that I was kind of able to do that partially because of denial. Like, I feel like when my mom first told it to me, it just like didn't really feel real. It's like, this happens to, and I hate to say this, but it's like, sometimes you're just like, this happens to other people. Like, this has happened before. I know it's a thing in the world, but like, this wouldn't happen to my mom. Like, never that, right? So I'm like, this has got to be some kind of a joke, man. Like, and I think that I was in denial for a good part of like the first however many weeks of learning about it. I just went on with schooling. I went on with my work. Another thing that was a key factor as far as like kind of not being in denial but not totally acknowledging it was the fact that my family grew up in a word of faith church where, like, how everybody's talking about manifesting and speaking things into existence. Like, I grew up on that in the church. Like, they told us, confess what you want to be true. Don't confess what you don't want to be true. Don't give power to things that you don't want to blow up more. Like, I was always taught in the power of our words. So my mom and I are always careful about our confessions. So my mom really didn't tell people that she had a cancer diagnosis, and I didn't really tell people that my mom had a cancer diagnosis. I was only willing to tell somebody if I trusted that they would, like, be believing with us for a miracle. If I thought somebody wasn't going to have faith with us for healing or a miracle, I barely wanted to tell them, because I'm like, I don't want you to put the energy of unbelief on this situation, because this is a very delicate situation and I only need faith on it. But the truth of the matter is, even though I didn't want to tell anybody else because I didn't want, anybody's lack of faith to affect the situation, I still struggled with having faith for the miracle. I was shaken, myself. And so, yeah, I just kind of went on with school, went on with life, didn't really say much about it to anybody, just a few close friends and just my mom, really. And we kind of kept it between ourselves for a little while. And obviously, like, she told my dad and brother and stuff. And so that was kind of it for a while. Later found out it was like early stage, like 1 or 2. And so the idea was that maybe they would do surgery. And then even that was a question for us, because we're like, okay, like I said, we were raised in a church word of faith, like believing for miracles. We believe in healing. So we're like, my mom is like, I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to, test it again and the cancer is going to be gone. And like, like, we believe we receive, like, that's that on that, period. Like, trying to believe for a miracle, but also being worried that, like, man, like, what if she has to have surgery and things like that. As time went on, like, it didn't just miraculously go away like we were hoping and praying for. And so it got closer to us basically needing to schedule a surgery. Because of COVID, that was kind of like pushed back until like May, but like that time did come. And as the time was approaching, I found myself just struggling a lot with fear and anxiety. More fear and more anxiety than I was really admitting to people. I think I had maybe one time early on where I just had a good cry and I was like, God, I'm scared, and just really admitted that. But aside from that one time, I feel like I was really just trying to hold it together. Surgery kind of approached, and I was able to go home because of COVID. I was at home at the time that my mom was getting ready to go into surgery, I believe, or May. Yeah, I was getting ready to go home, or I was home. I don't know. Time is all blending together. In my COVID world, things just blend together. But like, basically, as it was approaching, no. I was in Chicago when I came home for the first part of my mom's surgery. And basically, as the time was approaching, I was getting nervous, but my mom's friend from church was praying with her every day over her and over the surgery and everything like that. And that was helpful. And I was nervous, but the first surgery was not terribly involved. I wasn't home. Dang, my friend Saida remembers better than I do. I wasn't home. Man, I don't know. It's all blending together for me right now. But basically, there was a part 1 surgery that was making me nervous, and I think that basically, yeah, we were praying leading up to that, and I was nervous, and I wasn't sure how it was gonna go, and but basically it was fine. Like, the first surgery was fine. I was really nervous about how it was gonna be. I know I was home when she at least came home from the first surgery. I maybe wasn't home at first, but I went home. I was nervous, but like, it was not super involved. I was afraid of like seeing her. I started to feel more like, okay, she's gonna be okay, but I started to be afraid of seeing her in the recovery process. Like, man, she's gonna be in recovery. Is she gonna be in a lot of pain? Like, my mom is a strong woman. My mom is, she's full of faith. So it's like, yeah, like, she was fine, but I was just like, when she comes home, is she gonna be weak? I don't want to see her like that. I'm not used to seeing her like that. I want to help, but I don't want to see my mom, in any way hurting. And so that was kind of like scary for me. The whole day that she was in surgery, okay, I was home, I'm remembering now, because Saida and I fasted together. We fasted until she came home from surgery. My dad went to the hospital with her. but they only allowed one person in per day because of like COVID restrictions. And so we were fasting and praying and just trusting for the surgery to go well. I still had class that day. I still had assignments to do. So I'm just kind of like trying to hold it together while doing all the schoolwork and everything. And then like she came home that very same night from the hospital. So that was an answer to prayer. That was a huge answer to prayer. And she, you know, she was a little bit weak, but she wasn't in bad. That's the next surgery, Shelby. She wasn't in bad shape. And so that was like the part one. That was part one of the surgery, and that was basically surgery to get the cancer removed. So that was okay. And then there was a part two. There was a part two surgery. So basically, I was home. My mom had part one. You know, she came home that same night. You know, we got her on her pain meds, and like for the most part, it was okay. I don't remember anything too bad about the first round of her surgery. And then I came back to Chicago, had my graduation, and got ready to come back home in late July for second round of the surgery. Second round of the surgery was going to be more involved. Like the first round, they were literally just removing like masses, but the second round was like a reconstruction that involved opening her up in like multiple places, her stomach, up here, in order to try to put things back together, because they had essentially removed, it was almost like a mastectomy. By the time they removed the masses, they had removed so much that they needed to literally do a whole reconstruction. And they were like, it's a more involved surgery, it's a 6-week recovery time. And so this is where my fear started to go to another level. Because just with them saying it was more major and saying that she had a 6-week recovery time, I'm like, well, if she's going to be out of commission for 6 weeks, like, what does that mean about how serious this surgery is? Like, what are the risks? Like, what could possibly happen? And to be honest, I was really fearing that something really bad would happen, but I wasn't telling my mom, and I wasn't really telling anyone because I didn't want to speak it out, right? And I didn't want to put that on my mom because it's like she's the one going into surgery, so I don't want to put that on her. And so I just kind of was carrying this around. Leading up to the surgery, like I said, my mom's friend from Dang, this is telling me I have 5 minutes left on Instagram. So if this gets interrupted in 5 minutes, stick with me and I'll be right back. I keep on forgetting to like turn off my social media limits for these lives. But basically this woman from my church named Elaine, who is wonderful and one of my mom's best friends, and who is a prayer warrior, was praying over my mom every day leading up to her surgery, like just every single day for like at least 40 days before her surgery. And so that was a real encouragement. And so about a week before my mom's surgery, when I was noticing that I was really struggling with so much anxiety and fear, I started joining those prayer calls. Those prayer calls really encouraged me because they were prophesying. So they would pray, but then they would like speak about what they felt like God was putting on their hearts. And we would pray preventative prayers. We would pray no blood clots, no this, no that. We would say she's going to have a supernaturally speedy recovery. We would speak all these different things, what a lot of people would kind of equate to manifesting, and it's very similar. Just speaking out what we believe to be true, what we believe that God was promising. And that like kind of helped me on one hand, because I'm like, okay, we're covering her in prayer. It's like insurance, right? We're praying, it's covered in prayer, it's good. But part of it scared me, because when the prophetic woman from my church would pray things like no blood clots, no pneumonia, no this, no that, sometimes I would be afraid, and I'd be thinking, is God telling her to pray that because that's at risk of happening? And are we praying enough to prevent that from happening, or is it possible that it will still happen? So I had this fear of like, are we praying against something happening, but it might still happen type of a thing. Like, are our prayers enough? Are they gonna work? And so on one hand, the prayers comforted me, but on the other hand, I was like afraid of all the things that we were praying not to happen, whether they would actually happen. We prayed against medical racism. I'm like, are they going to be racist? Are they going to take care of my mom? All these different things. So the surgery approached, and we had been praying every day together, and that was helpful, but I was still struggling with some fear, and at a higher level than what I was admitting to myself, to my mom, to other people. And it just so happened that the night before the surgery, me and my mom went on a virtual, we attended a virtual Bible study from my church. My church has these small groups called tribes. So I attended the Bible study that night, and I told the women at my Bible study, you know, my mom has surgery tomorrow. Hey, say hi, here's my mom. It was chill. And my tribe leader, Lakita, was asking, okay, how are you feeling about surgery and everything? And I'm like, you know, like, a little anxiety, but I've been praying through it, like it's okay, yada yada. And I don't know, it's like she just picked up on the fact that that wasn't really the case, that I wasn't fully okay. It's like she just picked it up in the spirit, and she was like, and I was, praying for my mom, and she was like, you really need to be free to be a daughter. And like that hit a nerve, because with Black women, I feel like we're so often looking out for other people and having to look out for ourselves, that it can feel like we don't have enough protection and we don't have enough people looking out for us. And so it's like we look out for each other, right? So even though I'm a daughter, I felt like this protectiveness over my mom and this desire to like really make sure she was okay, because like who else is going to make sure she's okay? She's always the one that's praying for other people. She's always the one covering other people. She's always the one taking care of other people. So I think I didn't feel that freedom to just be a daughter, because it's like if I don't step up and walk through my mom with my mom through this, who will? So that hit a nerve. And then the thing that she said that hit a nerve, even though I didn't even hint at this, she was like, it's like you have a fear of losing her. And when I tell y'all, I just broke down in tears completely immediately after she said that. I completely broke down, because it was true. I didn't really know what the risks were of the surgery, and I was too afraid to ask specifics. But what I really wanted to ask my mom was like, is it possible that I could lose you? And it's just like, losing my mom is like literally the most terrifying thing that I could think of in this world. Like, people think that I'm this or that I'm that. When I tell y'all I'm nothing without my mom, like, I know I'm primarily nothing without God, but okay, I'm nothing without God. But when I tell y'all that my mom is the closest thing to God that I know on this earth. She's the closest thing I know. And like, I had a fear of losing her, and I didn't know if it was reasonable or not. I didn't know if it was realistic. But I was afraid that somehow something would go wrong in the surgery and I was gonna lose my mom. And yeah, that was the truth. And so I broke down and I admitted it. And my mom was like, oh no, Bree, I didn't know that you were thinking that. Like, God's got me, I'm okay. Like, don't worry about me. And, she reassured me. And, yeah, like we had that time and like, we prayed and I felt like almost by just admitting the fact that I had that fear, like it almost felt like it broke off of me. I told them part of where that fear came from for me. The fear partially came from a prophetic word that I had gotten before, where someone told me that that one day I would have a hard experience where I had to like really encourage myself in God. And ever since I got that word, I was just afraid, like, what could that hard experience be? What could it be? What if it's like losing like one of my parents? And so I was just really, like, it's been a latent fear for a while. Even though I know that prophecy is meant to encourage you, that feeling of not knowing what that was about, I just did it. It scared me. And so, but I think that having that space to admit that fear was really powerful. And it was almost like by admitting it and then having my mom reassure me and having the women in my Bible study like pray for me, it's like it was almost like it broke off of me. And so yeah, it's like it broke off of me. And we prayed and they encouraged us, and my mom was like, that's not on the table, like that's not an option here, like don't worry, like that was never a concern. and yeah, it was just like it was okay after that. And the woman who was leading my Bible study was like, I have an instruction for you. um just just be a daughter tonight. Just spend some time with your mom. You don't have to spend all night praying. She's like, I believe this instruction is from God. You two watch a movie together tonight. This was the night before the surgery. And so we yeah, that's what we did. I had just started watching this show called Married at First Sight maybe the week before. And I know two people that are on this season of Married at First Sight. One person who graduated my master's program like the year before I started, and another person who was the daughter of somebody who's in my master's program. So I got two connections to Married at First Sight. So I was like, Mom, we can watch Married at First Sight. And so we watched Married at First Sight together after getting off the Bible study, and just like relaxed that night before her surgery, and went to bed early. And yeah, it's a great show. Went to bed early, and so that we could get up early because we had to be at the hospital at like 6 a.m. So you know, packed my bag, got ready, took her to the hospital the next morning bright and early, and just kind of went in hoping for more, having a little bit more trust in God this time around. And so, you know, we went in, we got her checked into the hospital, sat with her while they checked her vitals and got all the logistics together. And they rolled her into the operating room. And I went back out to the waiting room to just kind of wait. She was going to be in surgery for hours, so I just went out there to wait. And yeah, like, God really blessed me with peace that I didn't have before, because before going into the day of the surgery, I didn't even know if I would be able to like relax while my mom was in surgery. I didn't know if I would be anxious the entire time that she was in there, even though it was going to be like 8 hours. I didn't know if I would be able to sleep. I didn't know if I would be able to like do anything else. I didn't know if I'd be able to read a book. I didn't know if I would just be praying the whole time because I was so nervous. But God allowed me to have peace. Truly. And you know, after they rolled her into surgery, I went back out into the waiting room and I went to sleep. Which may not sound like a testimony to some people, but considering the fear that I had been experiencing leading up to her surgery, the fact that I was able to go back outside and put my sleeping mask on and go to sleep in the waiting room was like actually a huge testimony for me. I had peace. I trusted that God had my mom, and that I didn't have to, that me being anxious wasn't going to make anything better. Me being anxious wasn't going to make God do more or less. Like, God had her, and it wasn't about me holding it together. It was about God holding it together so I could rest while God did his thing. We prayed before she went in, and I went outside and took a nap. And so basically, yeah, that's what I did while she was sleeping. I slept for a little bit. I mean, while she was in the surgery, I slept for a little bit. I ate a little bit. And then I also went downstairs and just like had like a nice meal. Like, I was fasting up to my mom's surgery. I was fasting. I don't know if I was fasting sweets or meat or meals. I don't know, but I was fasting some kind of way. But I even felt like I can break my fast. Like, it's already done. Like, I don't have to not eat until she comes out of surgery. Like, I can have faith and know that it's already done. And so I remember going downstairs and just getting some nice soup and like some Mediterranean food, and sitting down and having a meal and reading this book, and just feeling like God was with me, and just feeling that peace. And I even texted my friends and I was like, yeah, I just feel like I'm just at peace having this meal and reading my book, and I feel so good. And one of my friends, Kate, was like, I just see Jesus sitting with you. And the funny thing is, when I went back upstairs after having my meal, the woman who had been praying over my mom called me on the phone and said, like, what did she say? She was checking on me, and I was talking to her and telling her how my mom was doing, and she was like, hey, are you reading a book today? And I'm like, yeah. She was like, are you reading a yellow book? And I was just like, yeah, I was reading a yellow book. And then she was just like, oh, because I felt like God said you were reading a yellow book. And that's probably doesn't sound like a testimony to some people, but like, I just felt so seen. Like, I'm like, man, God sees the book that I'm reading because God is with me. And like, it's just like what my friend Kate said, like, he's with me. And so like that just made me feel like God was with me even more. And the yellow book that I was actually reading was about, part of what it talked about was the power of like being able to get a word from God for somebody, just like the woman from my church just did, getting a word from God for somebody and God speaking to you in order to share something with someone else. And that was something that I learned a lot about in undergrad, but I had stopped doing it more since graduating. And I was like, and I just remember reading that book and being like, God, like, it's been a while, but I pray that you would allow me to get a word for somebody. I pray that you would allow me to encourage somebody even today. Because I had had experiences in the past where when I ask God for an opportunity to encourage somebody, he answers me. And so I just asked again, and I'm like, I prayed, but not just to encourage somebody, I pray that you give me a word for somebody. And so I had prayed that, and then I saw this lady who had been working the surgery floor walk by. She had been showing me, oh, this is where the bathroom is. This is where you put your things. She walked by, and I felt like God highlighted her to me, and I was like, okay. And I was like, what about her though, God? And I felt like God was highlighting something about her family and specifically a daughter. And I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I was like, well, I asked for something. This is something, and I don't know, but I'm gonna just try to go share this word with her. And so, you know, I was having trouble finding an opening because she's talking to other people, and I'm not trying to run up on her and like do this weird thing while she's around other people. And so finally she sits down at the front desk, and I see her sitting over there, and so I decide to go over to her, and I just go and sit down by her, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you have like family or a daughter that you're concerned about, but I just feel like God wants you to know that like he's looking out for your family. And I was like, and I don't know if that resonates with you, but that's just, and she was like, that's just what was on your heart to share with me. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, man, this lady probably thinks I'm crazy. I don't even know if this is relevant to her life. But then she kind of started tearing up, and she was just like, you know, sometimes you're just looking for answers and you don't know where they're gonna come from, but this was confirmation from me. Thank you for saying that to me. And that really was like, whoa, like that was whatever God just put on my heart to say to her, like that actually resonated with her. And that really encouraged me, because I'm like, wow, my mom is literally in surgery right now. I didn't know if I was gonna have enough peace of mind to literally make it through her surgery. And I'm actually taking the time and being able to minister to somebody else and give a word from God to somebody else. And so that just really, that was pretty impactful for me, because that was the first time I had given someone a word in a long time in general, let alone while my mom is in surgery for cancer and breast reconstruction. And so that was really cool. So that was dope. And then, you know, time kept on going by, and my mom was in surgery longer than expected. And there was a time during her surgery where I just felt like I needed to pray. And so there was maybe an hour to an hour and a half where I was just praying during my mom's surgery, but still trusting God, still not scared, just praying. And so I did that, and eventually my mom came out. The doctor came and told me that she was in surgery, and it took a while too. After a while, I'm keep on checking the screen, because there's a screen that tells you surgery in progress versus completed, and I keep going back and looking at the screen like, y'all said she would be out by now. Y'all said 2 hours, 3 hours ago. Like, when is she gonna be done? But finally, the surgeon came out and told me that she was done, that that the surgery was a success, that it was more complicated than they expected, but that it was a success. And so I was encouraged, and I'm like, okay, thank God. And I you know, went to go. My dad brought me food, because I was the only one in the hospital that day. My dad brought me food. And I went and sat with him while they were getting her into post-op, and ate whatever he brought me and chilled with him for a second. And then they were like, okay, you can come see her. So I went to go see my mom. and she was okay. And that might sound like a very basic statement, but just seeing my mom okay after the surgery was just like such an answer to prayer. And she was speaking and smiling, and hey, my mom just joined, hi mama. And she was okay. And that wasn't and so that was the first thing that God did, was bring her through the surgery, which was a testimony in and of itself. But that wasn't the only thing God did, because even that night I had favor, because they I think visiting hours were supposed to be over at like 9:00 at night, and they were over, and they let me stay till like 11:00 at night. And so that was a testimony in and of itself, just having favor with the nursing staff. And the staff, that the nurse that she had that night was like one of the best nurses. She was on top of her pain management. She was giving her medicine right on time, right on schedule. Like, she was just caring for her so well, and she was so sweet. And one of the things that we prayed and that was prophesied was that she would have the best medical staff. And so that was really great. Even down to the logistics, God came through with the logistics, because when I went downstairs to leave at 11:00 at night, they wouldn't let me out of the door that I came in. They had locked that door already, so I had to go out of another door. And my uncle had called me just a few minutes before I left, like, hey, do you need me to come take you to your car? And I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna go right out the front door and go to my car. But I get downstairs, and they literally had me go out the other end of the hospital, and I'm carrying so much stuff, all my mom's stuff, all my stuff. And so I end up calling my uncle back, and he's able to come get me and drive me around to my car, so I'm not having to walk around this big hospital in the middle of the night, in the middle of downtown Detroit. I don't know what is going on around me. So it was just logistically, I felt like God was showing up, even in the little things, like my uncle just offering. Oh, Lakita just joined. Lakita, you're gonna have to watch the replay, because I definitely shouted out our tribe meeting before the surgery. But yeah, like, took me to my car. So that was really helpful, even just the logistics of that. Went home. My mom was in the hospital for 5 days after the surgery. And there were a lot of ups and downs during the 5 days. The good thing was that I was able to go visit with her, because everything was virtual. This is another blessing. Because everything was virtual, I was able to be home with my mom, even while I was finishing, while I had work to do, while I had, jobs to do and things like that. I was still able to go be at the hospital with her. So I visited her in the hospital every day for the 5 days she was there. And we got to just like spend time together, watch movies together. She did start to experience what I will say was medical racism, and I was really upset. She was really upset, because at times it felt like they were not taking her pain seriously. It's like, she just came out of surgery, and how are you trying to immediately wean her off the pain medication and talk about you want to give it to her as needed? Nah. You need to give it to her on a schedule. If it says every 3 hours, you need to give it to her every 3 hours, because what would happen is they would wait, or they would delay, and then she's in excruciating pain because the pain medication wore off. The stuff is like clockwork. So if it says every 3 hours, it's because after 3 hours it's gonna wear off. So we definitely had some frustrations with the medical staff some of the days, where it's like, y'all are not taking her pain seriously. And I felt like, as a Black woman, they really weren't listening to her, because they would ask her about her pain on a scale of 1 to 10. And sometimes she would say, I'm at a 9, and they would still not move with a sense of urgency. Okay. Then they would still not move with a sense of urgency. And yeah, my mom just put in the comments, my brother's going through the same thing in the hospital. That's why I said in my post that I need this testimony tonight, because we have another family medical emergency happening right now. So I hope that this is encouraging y'all, but it's also to remind myself of the way that God comes through in times like this. And if you have a moment, if you're praying, people, please pray for my little brother. He hurt himself playing football, and tore his ACL and 2 other ligaments. And so he's already had 1 surgery. They're saying he might need more. Pray for him. But yeah, like, they were not managing her pain well. But one thing that happened one night when we were praying was that we are praying, and we are literally praying specifically about, thank y'all, we are praying specifically about them not managing her pain and stuff well. And literally, like, moments after we prayed, a doctor came to check on her, and he was like, hey, is everything going okay? And she started to tell the doctor about how they weren't managing her pain well. And then she was like, and we were praying about it just now. And he's like, oh, it's interesting that y'all were praying about it, because I was down the hall doing something else, and I just felt a prompting to come check on you. And I'm like, you better come on, God. You better come on and send these doctors to check on my mama. And so there was even a point during her time in the hospital where we felt like God directly answered our prayers for people to pay better attention to her and give her better treatment. So that was even an encouragement. And so that was helpful that night. It didn't mean that every single day after that was peaches and cream, because some of those days we still had to we got into it with those nurses for not doing what they're supposed to do. And literally my mom ended up writing like a 5-page letter after her stay at that hospital to like really talk about her experience, because some of it was just not acceptable. To this day it's not acceptable, but God really was coming through in big and small ways and during her stay. And so we finally got her home after 5 days, and that's when yes, amen, no weapon formed against Trey will prosper. We finally got her home after 5 days in the hospital, and then caring for her got way better, because then we could handle her pain meds on our own. We knew the schedule. Once we get the meds and the schedule, and this is every this many hours, this is every this many hours, then we can literally give her the medication on schedule, and she doesn't have to end up in excruciating pain waiting for somebody to get better. Literally, there was a time where somebody told her they were bringing her medication and then went on a 45-minute break. When I tell y'all, I wanted to flip a table at that hospital some days, but God is faithful. We got her home. I had favor when I was visiting her. I stayed at past visiting hours like every night. So God got us through that season. And basically once she was home, we were still praying every day on the phone with this lady from my church. And her name's Sister Elaine, who we love so dearly. And so we were praying every day. I think we were praying an hour on the phone every day over my mom, which is such a beautiful thing, because like I said, my mom covers everybody else. My mom prays for everybody else. My mom, when I was little, would get up in the morning and go to prayer at our church at 6 o'clock in the morning to cover me, my brother, my dad, our whole family in prayer. And so just having this woman from my church who God put it on her heart to literally pray every day for my mom for an hour, and for us to all join in praying and prophesying over my mom, was just like such a blessing. I was literally thinking today, like, because I had some good news happen today, which I will testify about next week. And I was like, man, God, you've always prospered me so much in my life. And I'm like, somebody has been praying for me. And I'm like, oh, my mama, she has prayed for me all my life. And I know that all the favor and prosperity and grace on my life is in no small part due to her prayers. And so it was great to have this time of just dedicated praying for her. And one night while we were praying, basically my mom just got a breakthrough. Like, we were praying, and suddenly she was just like, I just got a burst of energy. Like, I feel reinvigorated. Like, I just feel like there's been a shift. She was struggling with deep breathing, and she was needing to breathe deeply, and it wasn't really working. And I think that she was able to cough something up while we were praying and be able to get more circulation in her lungs. And it was just like that night, she just felt like she got a breakthrough. And it's funny because literally the prophetic word that the woman we were praying with released that night or the next day was that God said, it took you this long to get the breakthrough. And I kid you not, it was like a total turning point. My mom, with her pain, with her breathing, with even gas that she was experiencing, like after that night praying, it was all totally different. It wasn't that she was 100% recovered, but it was like, it was a really, really big change. And she can testify to that. And I feel like it was never the same after that. And so we are basically believing for a supernaturally fast recovery. And when I tell y'all that God did that thing, like that night she had a breakthrough, and she continued to get better from there, to the point where I was going to come back to Chicago the first weekend in August to celebrate my cousin's birthday. My cousins Marissa and Mariah were celebrating their 25th birthday, and my mom was like, since you're willing to come home and care for me, I'll fly you out to Chicago and you can go to your cousin's birthday, and I'll fly you back in case you still need to stay here. I didn't end up flying because I decided that with COVID, why fly? But like basically when I came back to Chicago to celebrate my cousin's birthday, the first weekend in August, which was literally only 2 weeks after her surgery, when they had said that she needed a 6-week recovery time, my mom was fine. I came back to Chicago and stayed my butt here because my mom was fully standing up. She had gone to check in with her doctor and got a clean bill of health. She drove, literally earlier the week before I left, she drove me to my hair appointment. Like, she was so much better. And it had only been 2 weeks. And it's funny because when they had been saying 6-week recovery time, we had constantly been praying, no, supernaturally fast recovery time, supernaturally fast recovery time. It's not going to be 6 weeks. And I even had a friend, he was well-meaning, I'm sure, but he was like, oh, 6 weeks is fine. And I was like, no, supernaturally fast recovery time. Like, that's what we're praying for. That's what we're believing. That's what's about to happen. Why should my mom be out of commission for 6 weeks if God can get her better sooner? Why? ¿Por qué? And so we prayed, and God did that thing. And my mom did not look like what she had been through literally 2 weeks after the surgery was over. So, I just say all that to say, I feel like that is most of the testimony. I came back to Chicago and my mom was fine, and now she's pretty much fully recovered. She's still getting some range of motion back in her arms. But other than that, for the most part, she's pretty much good to go. Cancer is gone from her body. She has a reconstructed physique, you know what I'm saying? She got a fresh little tummy tuck out of the deal. And now she's starting a wellness organization to help other people to conquer cancer. And so it's like she is using, God is using what she's going through to help her to help others. And so I'm excited to see what comes out of that. So I feel like that's mostly all that was up with that testimony. I know, Mom, that you're watching, but I think she's watching from the hospital. If you want to tap into this live, if there's something that I missed, or if you want to just say hi to the people so they can see your beautiful face and see how you're doing, you can. But if you're attending to Trey, or if your signal is bad or anything like that, you don't have to. But yeah, y'all, God did a lot with my mom's journey, and with her battle against cancer. Safe to say, cancer lost. Jesus won. So that's my testimony. God did a lot. He sent someone to pray for my mom. He delivered me from fear of losing her. He brought her safely through the surgery. He gave us favor in the hospital. He gave her a supernaturally fast recovery. And he's going to use what she's been through to help her to encourage and empower other people. So to say that I'm thankful would definitely be an understatement. So, and now, my brother is facing a medical emergency, but this is a reminder for me and anybody else who's facing anything similar that, like, God is more powerful, that God has the final say, that heaven has the final report over any doctor's report any day, that miracles do happen to this day. So don't be afraid to pray for a miracle, whether it's a supernaturally fast recovery, whatever it is. Like, don't be afraid to pray for a miracle. We're definitely praying for a miracle, and when I say that, I don't say that as a turn of phrase or speech. Like, we're really praying for a miracle with my brother, and I look forward to testifying of one. So yeah, that is my testimony, and also my mom's testimony, that God is just good all the time, and you will never, miracles happen every day. Telling y'all, miracles happen every single day. You just have to look. You just have to get in touch with people that are sharing their testimony. So that's mine. And that's part of why I'm doing this series, is because miracles literally do happen every day, but you just may not hear about them. But God is literally intercepting in the lives of people all the time. And he intercepts into my life in so many different ways. And so I just wanted to share it in case it might encourage somebody else, and in order to encourage myself too. And I want to thank y'all for rocking with me. We've been in the double digits as far as viewers this whole time, and the fact that y'all, sat through me talking for like 40 minutes where I was sometimes out of sorts and sometimes didn't remember things and sometimes broke down crying. I really just appreciate y'all tapping in with me tonight. This is the second to last installment in my Testimony Tuesday series. Next week, I'm going to be talking about supernatural provision. So the way that God has allowed me to get my education debt free, and just how he's shown up in my finances over the last 5-6 years or so. That is so full of so many testimonies. So if you need encouragement in the area of finances, provision, education, career, anything like that, tap in next week, same day, same time, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And that will be the last testimony in this series leading up to my birthday, because my birthday is next Friday, turning 25. 5 testimonies for my 25th. See what I did there? I see some people are just joining. If you missed it, I'm about to post the replay right after I end this video. So feel free to watch it. Feel free to share it. This page is public because I want these stories to be available to anybody who might find them encouraging. So that's it. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I would love, last week people commented and let me know if it resonated with them. If what I shared resonated with you at all, feel free to share it in the comments, because that actually means a lot to me. Because when I do these things, it's kind of just like putting myself out there and hoping that God uses it somehow, or that it blesses somebody. And it means a lot to me to hear back from people what it meant. And so thank y'all always for being here. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the love. Check out my YouTube channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next week.